Hi, Frank. I'm executive producer on The Expanse and the writer of the books, along with my partner, Daniel Abraham, who can't be here. But both of us want to say thank you.
Thank you, Comic-Con.
We are so happy to be here.
Hey, San Diego.
And thank you to everybody out there, all of you amazing fans, you belters, earthers, Martians, and screaming firehawks. You're the reason that season 4 is happening.
Been seeing the banner across the sky. You guys are amazing.
You saved us.
And thank you, Amazon Prime, for coming back in season 4.
No, we live in an alternate timeline where Firefly was never canceled!
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love when you want, where you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey man, I'm Brian Brushwood, and guess what? It is freaking Christmas for new promises of things to come. San Diego Comic-Con used to be a place I actually went. Now it's easier to stay home and just watch all of the high-definition trailers piped directly into my eye holes right here at home.
And we have done just that in our own so darn comfortable con. As we were home.
The real SDCC. There it is. So darn comfortable con. Yeah, I'm glad we have a title.
Let's get to talking about this stuff in the primary target. Now, we got some thoughts about trailers that sort of came up in the mass watching of these that we'll get to. But we're going to talk about the properties themselves and what we think and are we excited about them. Let's start with Aquaman opening December 21st, Brian.
Hey, I'm not going to lie. I only saw the last 20 seconds of this, but the only thing I saw was him jumping out of a plane into a desert. And I was like, of course, if a character is powerful, how do you put him in a difficult second act arc as you take him away from the water? Because his name is Water Guy. So of course he's going to be in a desert.
The trailer shows a lot of like, I'm just a loner. You should come back and challenge the king. Okay, I guess I will. I'm going to beat you up now. Underwater world for most of the movie, and then the part you saw. So
I suspect that all of this is first act stuff, right? I think this is origin story, first act, and then the second act is like, oh, what am I going to do? There's no fish for me to call. I'm not a sandbender.
It's probably that the king that he's fighting to take the throne away from still wants to attack the humans, and so Aquaman is going to have to defend the humans. Like that's got to be the crux of this based on the trailer.
Here's my biggest question. It does look like with the Aquaman character that the DC universe is having a bit of fun. And again, I speak about all this from an outside orbit because I never watched Justice League. Sorry. But what are the odds that they have so much fun that they give is it Adrian Grenier, the guy from Entourage? Because remember they did James Cameron's Aquaman.
I cannot not think about that. Yeah.
How great would it be if he just shows up and then just gives a wistful look like, oh man, I want to be like that guy, or something. I would love that. I don't know. That would be fun.
Yeah, I think that's and I think the odds are even on this being good. We could have the Jason Momoa of Wonder Woman here, or it might totally disappoint. New Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald opens November 16th. They're starting to brand this as the Wizarding World too, which they've been doing more and more lately. And I'll start on this one. I felt like this felt more like a Harry Potter movie, and they were showing you like, hey, here's Hogwarts and here's young Dumbledore, and you all didn't like that it wasn't very Harry Potter. Well, it's going to be a lot more Harry Potter this time, and I think that could be promising.
Or what's funny is I don't even think it needs to be more Harry Potter. I think it just needs to be grounded more in that world. It's like imagine a Star Wars movie where you didn't see a single AT-AT or whatever. And again, I'm the first to admit that I don't like
Phantom Menace.
Well, yes, exactly, right.
Yeah.
Give them enough to remember this is that the world is the star, not the individual people or whatever.
I think it may be that they had to go to New York in order to build the wider world that they want to be able to play in, and it'll pay off. But you totally nailed the problem with the first Fantastic Beasts. It just didn't feel as much like you were in the world that they had established.
Did I hear right? Are they saying that the enemy is television in this? Television's gonna revolutionize everything? Isn't that the big speech the bad guy's making? Maybe I misheard. But regardless, I do love capturing because this takes place 1920s, 1930s or so.
Mm-hmm.
I do love capturing the optimism of technology during that time. And of course, history shows that most of that energy was funneled into turning all of humanity into a meat grinder. But I love that brief moment of optimism that preceded it.
Gareth Edwards' Godzilla King of the Monsters, sequel to the earlier Godzilla reboot, coming to theaters May 31st, 2019.
Holding judgment on this one, Tom, because it's very much leaning into but what appears to be unironically, like you see Mothra, you see.
Yes.
I mean, the idea. I don't know. It's so silly. It just might be brilliant. And my favorite parts of the most recent Godzilla reboot were the pro wrestling aspects. Where it's I feel like that most recent reboot might have benefited from being a little bit sillier than it was. And it seems like they're leaning into it. But now that I'm looking at the pitch reel for it, it makes me nervous that it's going to be too silly.
I am not afraid to love, Brian. Mothra, bring them all on. I loved seeing new reimagined. I was like, if there was any problem with the original Godzilla, is it played it too safe. And I like that we're going to go out and just be like, here, all the kaiju, here they come. Boom. Also, Millie Bobby Brown, Sally Hawkins, Coach Taylor, Kyle Chandler. There's a lot of my favorites in this. So, I think that helps too.
It could be framed, man. They're gonna have to pull a Men in Black. They're somehow gonna have to make me accept the ability, or they're gonna have to somehow be wink and a nod enough that they can have a character, that's a Balchinian, and then when he gets punched in the chin, he acts like he got kicked in the crotch. They're gonna have to seduce me.
The Clone Wars is going to get a finish. 12 new episodes on Disney's soon-to-be-launched direct-to-consumer streaming service, which is expected sometime next year. And the idea is we will jump forward from the last season that aired on Netflix, taking into account the book that was written based on the plot for the season that was never produced after that, and lead up to a big battle that was alluded to in the novel Ahsoka, and kind of bring us right up to the events of Revenge of the Sith.
This might be great, but of all the trailers, and we'll talk about this in trailer roundup format, talk time, new segment that I'm proposing. Out of all of the trailers, this one just so clearly spoke to not me. It was so inside baseball. Like every single comment, I'm like, I guess that's a person, and I guess that's a thing.
I'll be honest, I don't remember anything that was in the trailer. I watched it and was like, yeah, okay, but I'm way more excited about the facts that you have told me about what the season is going to be about. So that's what I'm excited for.
Yeah. I can
Matt Groening's new Netflix series Disenchantment got its release date and a full trailer. It's coming August 17th.
I'm getting
I think we already knew the date, but we got a full trailer on it.
Yeah. What did you think of this trailer?
I mean, I don't have anything to add to what I've said for previous teaser trailers and stills and announcements of cast. Yeah, all right. It's Futurama in medieval times.
Yeah.
Could be great. We'll see. I can't wait to watch it.
And I will say that much like Futurama, none of what would turn out to be the most brilliant aspects of Futurama showed up in the early promotional trailers for it. I'm actually very enthusiastic and very I got good vibes about this.
How about this one? Marvel's Iron Fist season 2 begins streaming September 7th.
Man, it seems to me like that movie that television show was largely panned specifically for the not so very good action sequences.
It's one fist fight. It's so boring.
It seems to me like if you're going to do a trailer to announce Iron Fist season 2, maybe you would address the one major complaint about season 1 and have really good martial arts, but not so much.
Here's what's funny about that. Amongst the people I know who watched Iron Fist season 1, we all agreed, well, the fight scenes are better.
Oh no, don't say that. Oh God, Tom. How bad was it?
It's not, and this is not disagreeing with you. You didn't watch Iron Fist season 1. That's all that means.
Oh no. All right. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Night Flyers, the George R. R. Martin space horror novella, which is actually going to be turned into a space horror show coming to Sci-Fi this autumn. Got a trailer. I don't know that we learned much more other than it's going to be scary.
Yeah, but also, I was mentioning this to Bryce as we were watching it. It seems like stories of this character do really well when there's either a negative major plot and a really positive subplot, or the reverse. Like on the surface, everything's really positive, and then there's subversive, sarcastic stuff underneath. This just sounds like a real bummer of a world, and then on top of that, like the ship's haunted and everything sucks for the one thing trying to save humanity.
I agree with you, man, because I have not read Night Flyers, the book, but the people who've read it have all told me that it's great and not well represented yet, but they're still hopeful that the series will be very good.
I fingers crossed on this, because I think there's enough talented people that I'm hoping that this was just a mismatch on how they presented it.
A couple things about Star Trek Discovery. Season 2 coming to CBS All Access 2019, early 2019. We didn't get a firm date, but they also said they're going to put a series of 10 to 15 minute shorts on CBS All Access in addition to the regular season episodes. So like a 10 to 15 minute episode about Harvey Mudd, one about Ensign Tilly, one about Lieutenant Saru, one apparently is going to be about a man stranded on a deserted ship a la Starbuck Battlestar 1980. So that could be interesting, but also the trailer shows us Captain Christopher Pike in full effect.
Yeah. So I still have yet to watch the first season of this, but this looked like the trailer was like, new captain, who dis? Which is normally something you associate with a show that's not doing well. Then they're all like, yeah, forget about that. We'll all forget about that first season before.
No. Because I'm glad you brought that up, because if you've watched it, you know very well why there's no captain of the Discovery right now. Mm-hmm. And of course, Christopher Pike is the captain of the Enterprise from right before Kirk took over.
Right.
And so him coming in and taking over Discovery is a very interesting scenario. And I won't say too much more that would spoil anybody who want to watch this season 1. But yeah, it's not a surprise that a new captain would be assigned. It is a surprise that it's Pike.
Yeah. Okay. Right on. I'm going to withhold judgment, but man, I'll tell you what, those really are movie quality action sequences, or appear to be.
And we got a trailer for Glass, the sequel to Unbreakable and Split, coming to theaters January 18th.
What did you think of this?
I like that it is leaning farther into the superhero part to acknowledge, like, nope, this is about whether these are superheroes or not. I am less excited about the plot of Sarah Paulson as my psychologist trying to convince us we're all crazy, but I assume that's a smaller part of the movie than it looks.
I think so as well. I think there's a bit of sleight of hand. I think they had one scene where the three of them are there in the same place at the same time. I hope that is not what the movie is about, because each of the movies that led us to this moment fairly unequivocally settled the issue of whether or not these are extraordinary beings, right?
Right.
And if you're going to spend the first act, with somebody trying to convince us that they're not or whatever, I don't know how much fun that's going to be for me. But
no, the fun is, and we got a couple of glimpses of this, is seeing the characters meet each other for the first time, right? And seeing them interact. That's what I want to see, is like, what happens when they all get together and either team up or fight? And I feel like they're not trying to convince us that they're not superheroes. It's a method of control that they're trying to convince them that they're imagining their powers, even though everybody knows they're real.
Yeah. So if I'm going to guess, this is just us making up stuff, David Dunn he's a security consultant, doing a superhero gig. He gets rounded up at some point along with the other two characters. They get thrown in a facility because they're all labeled the same thing. I do like it's hinted at that Mr. Glass and the Split guy, team up in a villain brains and brawn, Master Blaster relationship. And I could see that being pretty powerful. I hope we don't spend the whole movie watching David Dunn say, no, but you don't understand. I really am a superhero. Stop throwing water at me. That's my one weakness.
That would be a really bad script. Shazam coming to theaters April 5th, 2019. DC's first attempt at humor.
Yeah, I mean it's got
At
a
least
lot
since
of
Batman.
it's got a
anyway.
lot of joy in it.
Yeah.
I liked it. I think this is going to really hinge on how good the adult lead of the kid as Shazam is. If he could pull off a Tom Hanks, if this could be big, set in the DC universe, like that'd be great. That'd be great. If you can make me, in fact, fire whoever's directing this and hire Penny Marshall because that'd be awesome.
Yeah. I like Daniel J. Newman in the Twitch chat said, "We've been laughing at DC for years. Now we get to laugh with them."
I hope so.
Venture Brothers Season 7 coming to Adult Swim August 5th. Same day Better Call Saul comes back, by the way.
Hey, Tom.
Yes, Brian.
Apparently, a number of things have happened in the Venture Brothers universe since I fell off around season 5.
Yes.
Because we see Dr. Venture show up, and he's not in a lab by himself. He appears to be at a corporate shareholder meeting, dealing with the.
A lot more things happen in the seasons that you've missed, and you haven't caught up on them yet. I'm assuming.
Yes, correct. And this brought it into sharp focus, and so I'm going to watch them all.
But it's got the Monarch. It's got Dr. Girlfriend. That's all you need.
Is,
right?
is the Monarch like a quasi hero now? Because
Nah.
okay, all right,
No. Nobody's really changed.
okay, all right,
Yeah.
all right.
Get a look behind the scenes at the making of Good Omens. We didn't really get a trailer, but we got some interviews with David Tennant, mostly, and some shots of Neil Gaiman on set. That's coming to Prime Video next year. No date yet there either.
Yeah, this was a weird one because like David Tennant can sell a lot of things, but when he casually rattles off the exact line that we saw in CG text just beforehand from the twisted minds of Terry Pratchett and
That's just bad editing
Neil
right
Gaiman.
there. That's
Well,
like,
yes.
well, you don't put that slate up before he says it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then exactly. Meanwhile, like he's really trying to sell it like it's just something that he thought of saying just then. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really like the book, so hopefully
I
this
hear
is
it's
good. I actually think that they look like how I would want them to look, so it's good. Speaking of a book I love, Man in the High Castle Season 3 debuts October 5th. Trailer for that dropped today.
Spoilerific, it sounds like. And keep in mind, I've only watched the first like 4 episodes of season 1, but it sounds like this could be a prequel to Counterpoint at this point.
Well, yeah, and Man in the High Castle is about an alternate universe. That's very true. It has already departed quite a bit from the book, and in season 3, there's not much left of the book that they could use because it's just one book, and they kind of covered most of it in season 1 and a few of the remaining parts in season 2. So they're kind of striking out on their own, saying, well, if Philip K. Dick had written a sequel, where would he have gone with it? And essentially it's let's double down on alternate universes. What do you think the Nazis would have thought about getting a hold of alternate universes when they want Lebensraum in the physical space? Hey, why wouldn't they want it everywhere, right?
Yeah. No. To be honest, I'm really glad that I watched this trailer because it makes me want to get caught up and see where they're headed for season 3. This is season 3.
Yeah. So that is interesting because it sounded like this is one of the few trailers that inspired you to want to watch.
It's a very good trailer. It's a very good trailer because it would left me and I guess we're done going through the content. We could talk about trailers in general.
That was a transition into you talking about
yeah, and I did you
how
the
you felt
favor
about all
of
these
calling that
trailers.
out because we all know that's good entertainment is when you explain what you're doing while you're doing it.
always tell the audience what you're doing while you're doing
That's
it.
a great segue, Tom.
Thanks.
So here's the thing. I really love well-crafted trailers. Especially cinematic trailers for video games. Some of the great ones, like I remember every time I would start up Left 4 Dead, I would watch the entire cinematic 2-minute opening because it did such a good job of not only being an interesting story, but it effectively told the 4 archetypes of characters that you're going to play and the 3 or 4 big bads that you were going to face and all that stuff. And Blizzard does an extraordinary job with that as well. I get that San Diego Comic-Con shows up at a certain date, whether you're ready for it or not. But in general, I felt like this whole batch of trailers, some of them were coy when they didn't need to be coy and they didn't pay off. None of them. I feel like a really good trailer or a cinematic opening or whatever is like a fractal, where it's like you could glance at it and say, I grok what this is going to be. And then when you experience it, all you experience is a much higher fidelity version of exactly what was promised. Whereas each of these were playing different games. Some were playing on the curiosity gap. Some of them were playing on celebrity status. Some of them were playing on, we know you know this old thing, and so we're promising something that we think you're going to like about that old thing. I don't know. I was not real thrilled. It was not fun spending a half hour watching all of these for two of them that I thought were very good. And I do think the Man in the High Castle one was very, very good. And I thought the Shazam one was pretty good.
The interesting thing about that, I don't really watch cinematics that much because I just don't play as many games. But I know what you mean about the Blizzard trailers. They're always very compelling. I wonder, though, if there's some subconscious element of our brains that gives them a little more of a break because they're video games and we know it's not going to look real, and therefore we get more surprised and excited about the parts that they do well. Could be, but also, I don't know, trailers is a tricky business. And I guess also as you become better educated and you in media studies, and you find out that, trailers are almost never made by the people who made the movie. Basically, they say, here's a bunch of footage from the movie. How can you package this and sell this? And sometimes they sell it on what the thing actually is. And sometimes they sell it on what the thing feels like. For example, we're going to talk in spoilering time about Sorry to Bother You. I thought they did a fantastic job of selling me on the dynamic and the feeling of the movie, while withholding all of the possibly damaging plot elements to it, you know? So, that's a really good point. Trailers are commercials.
Yeah.
So they're not meant to be fractals that represent the movie. They're meant to make you go see the movie. And as we all know, some of the most effective commercials we would not say we liked, but they probably still worked on us. And that may be true of trailers too, where there's plenty of these trailers that you may subconsciously they may have achieved subconsciously in you exactly what they wanted to achieve.
Yeah. In fact, I don't even think these trailers, specifically the San Diego Comic-Con ones, I don't even think they're meant to get you to go to the movie. I think they're specifically engineered to keep you thinking about the property. If you're in the tribe, exactly, right? Like, if you're in the tribe, then their goal is this will give you something to talk about for 6 months until we have something next.
Even if you hated the Aquaman trailer,
right?
If it keeps you thinking and talking about it long enough for the next trailer to come out where you go, now that's a good trailer, then it worked.
Right. Correct. So, yeah, there's definitely skewed incentives on this, and I think that plays itself out with how they execute. So it's like, I don't want to make anyone feel bad who worked on any of these things, but so many of them were just a mismatch for what I was hoping for, and as a result, it wasn't as fun as I dared hope.
All right. What is as fun as you could dare hope is giving us $1.
Oh, my God.
You will barely miss it, most of you. If you will miss it, maybe you shouldn't give it to us. But most of you can afford to give us $1. And if you do, it will mean the world to us and make things so much better on this show and make the show better.
Yeah, $1. Hey, we say this all the time. Imagine that you bumped into Tom and E, and we're at LAX airport. We're about to go do Cordkillers live, maybe a Dragon Con or something. And you're like, holy crap, you two are the Cordkillers. It's like, yeah. And then we're at a bar and we're just about to, buy a beer. Would you buy us that beer? If you would, that'll cover 2 months worth of Cordkillers episodes, because beers at the airport are very expensive and we would like to have one. So pledge $1 per episode, and in 2 months you could buy one of us a beer at an airport.
And that's 4 months. Don't let them talk you into the large.
In 4 months you could buy both of us a beer. Why not?
Thank you, folks. Check it out. Patreon.com/Cordkillers. Now let's talk about how to watch all this stuff. Well, specifically how to watch DC stuff. DC announced at San Diego Comic-Con its streaming service DC Universe will launch this fall. It is going to be a hub for all things DC, content, comics, an encyclopedia a social platform. In fact, they emphasize that a lot in some of their interviews and talks with the media about how they think they can have a more higher quality conversation about their properties on their platform, because everybody who's there ostensibly is there because they like their platform. DC Universe will cost you $8 a month or $75 for an annual subscription. So they're trying to undercut the Netflixes and Hulus of the world. Subscribers who pre-order will get an additional 3 months for free. And of course, there are 5 original shows coming to the platform in conjunction with Warner Brothers. In addition to existing live action and animated works, they'll be available in the back catalog. Things like the CW shows, Supergirl, Flash, Arrow, the Arrowverse stuff, that will all be available for rent or purchase because of the deal with CW. CW kind of has some control of that still. But there'll be movies like Superman, the original Superman, original Batman, Dark Knight stuff's going to be back there in the catalog as well. So we've talked a lot about, the new idea of a bundle and a Sherpa who kind of tells you all the things you need to know. I thought the addition of the social platform being a better way to have conversations was an interesting pitch anyway.
Yeah, specifically, I think that is, I didn't think about it until I read it, but I think that is a superior solution to having a pop culture Sherpa, because then you have to rely on the energy and the talents of that one individual person, and that's a inherently inefficient thing. Maybe you'll have a hit, maybe you'll have a miss. But if you create your own social media platform and you gamify it, where it's, you ask a general question, a broadcast question goes out. You're like, this month's leaderboard will be, what is the right order to experience the Arrow story? And then you get everybody arguing about like, no, you got to start with this episode and then go back. Don't worry about this. And everybody fights over it. And then Reddit style, could you imagine like an up and down vote or whatever? And you gamify it so that there's a leaderboard. And then all of a sudden you end up with the top 5 ways to come to know the Arrow story. And then you do the same thing with Green Lantern the next month. Then the next month you do the Batman thing or whatever. That takes latent energy that is currently, it's like an explosion in the wild. Explosion in the wild is just fine. Everything, all the, matter gets turned into energy, but it's much more effective if you put it in 8 cylinders and time everything so that it could be an engine to drive things. I think this might be the linchpin, the key to make this totally work, because I don't see Marvel doing it as extremely well. Whereas if they let the inmates run the asylum on this thing, or at least feel like
Arkham
they are.
Asylum.
The Arkham Asylum. There you go. Then I think that could be a really potent way to bring other. Number one, all of a sudden it takes all your most passionate fans, which normally drive away people, but instead it makes them ambassadors to draw other people in.
And they have experience with an app, a news app that has forums and everything on it. So they're really kind of bringing together, they've had a DC Comics subscription plan. They're bringing together a bunch of things into one here. And what's funny is I've seen a lot of people say the same thing with a modular component change. Like, well, if the live action shows are good, then I guess this is worth it. If the comics back catalog is good, then I guess this is worth it. If the forums are actually decent and non-toxic, then I guess this is worth it. And I think that's one of the things that makes me think, well, maybe this will really work, is that they're getting a lot of people who have different priorities who are all saying, well, I guess if it does the thing that's my priority, well, it'll work. They could be cursed at being not good at any of those things, and then everybody's upset, but they also have the chance of bringing in a lot of people with different interests into one place like that. Where with Netflix, it's like you either like TV shows and movies that Netflix makes or you don't. They don't have much else going on in there, though.
Yeah, and there's also no question that Netflix is in charge, but DC is in a weird place in their cinematic universe and all of their online properties, in that they were Coke and now they're Pepsi. And on the one part, being Pepsi sucks because you're not Coke, but on the flip side, you get to try some crazy nutty things with very few repercussions.
I may be making this up to fit the analogy. I want to admit that right away, but I think Pepsi was starting to nudge in front of Coke in the 80s, which caused New Coke. Would be exactly the kind of thing we're seeing here, where DC's like, hey, we're Coke, we can't be number 2, we need to try new DC. And it's not a perfect analogy, but it does.
No, I see you. So you're saying like what we've seen in the cinematic world is essentially DC's new Coke, and if they're smart, they'll do what Coke did and just revert to Coca-Cola Classic. It's like no, we are unabashedly tights and cheesy one-liners, and sure.
All right, let's talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
I'd like you to say it's all about location, location,
They announced a reboot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer with Joss Whedon on board as executive producer, although he probably won't be a showrunner, but he'll be involved. A new young, diverse cast will be assembled. They don't have any announcements on that. Monica Owusu-Breen, previously who wrote for Alias, Charmed, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., will be writing for the show. There's a lot of mixed opinions about this. Some people are like, no, I want more Sarah Michelle Gellar Buffy. I don't care if it's grown up Buffy. That's fine. Other people are like, oh no, this is cool. Let's see a new take on it. Buffy's 30 years old now.
Man, that's a really good question because looking back, there are some shows that it's pretty obvious that the world is the star of the show, and other shows it's obvious that the main character is the star of the show. I don't know which is which in the Buffyverse. Like, I know I deeply enjoyed what it was doing for the time that it was. It was equal parts cheesy and funny and over the top, and
it's held up things well over the years compared to other things of the same era, I think.
Yeah. Man, I guess we'll give it a try. We'll see.
Yeah. We'll see how much of it was Sarah Michelle Gellar and how much was the ability to create a world. And some of that will have to do with Monica Owusu-Breen. Netflix announced 8 shows in development with Shonda Rhimes. Alleged con artist Anna Delvey, a show based on that. Adaptation of the 2010 book The Warmth of Other Suns, detailing the flight of African Americans north between the years of 1916 and 1970. An adaptation of Kleiner Perkins' Ellen Powell's memoir Reset, My Fight for Inclusion and Lasting Change in Silicon Valley. One based on Julia Quinn's Regency England feminist romance series, Pick and Sepulveda, set in Mexican California in the 1840s. An adaptation of the book The Residents Inside the Private Worlds of the White House, about the White House staff across several presidencies. Sunshine Scouts, a half-hour comedy series about teenage girls at a sleepaway camp when an apocalypse happens. And Hot Chocolate Nutcracker, which is a documentary about Debbie Allen's Dance Academy award-winning reimagining of the Nutcracker Suite. So documentaries based on a true story, based on a popular book, a whole cloth comedy. It's kind of all over the place, but it's all Shonda Rhimes.
Well, and also this is such a Netflix way to do it because my guess is their internal metrics have indicated that that whatever it is Shonda Rhimes has, there is a niche that is currently underserved with which that is a fit. And it does seem like a very pragmatic way to say, we're going to give you 8 shows. We do not expect all of them to, don't get us wrong. If these 8 shows become the most popular thing on the network, we'll continue to make them. But our internal metrics suggest that 3 of them will be the strongest of them. We would like you to develop all of them. We would like you to do it across all these different genres because all we know is our metrics indicate that a Shonda Rhimes sized, 2 or 3 shows. I'm making all of this up, but I can see them beginning with the knowledge that some of these will fail, but they'll end up with some that really satisfy an underserved niche.
And I think that applies to the next announcement, which is Netflix announcing the first titles from Miller World. If you remember, there's things like Kick-Ass that already belong to other studios, but Netflix is going to get Jupiter's Legacy, an original series about Golden Age superheroes having kids and those kids becoming angsty millennials. Empress, an original film about a space empress on the run. Huck, which is a movie that wonders if the greatest superpower is just all the friends we made along the way. Sharky, adapted from an upcoming comic about a bounty hunter in space named Sharky. And American Jesus, a comic turned Spanish language TV show about a boy who may or may not be the second coming of Jesus. Very preacher-like, that last one.
Same thing across the board. And yeah. I think this is... I think on the one hand, what this is going to do is train viewers to, there was a time that whenever people announced, the 3 only networks, whenever they announced, this is TV, shut up and like it, we're like, well, I guess I better learn to appreciate Automan. I guess it's going to be around forever. Oh, wait, it wasn't. I think that we're faster on that, where it's like, well, good. I hope it works out for them. Let's find out.
Amazon has given a series order to Tales from the Loop, a science fiction drama from Legion writer Nathan Halpern, based on the art of Simon Stålenhag, whose paintings blend elements of futuristic science fiction with images of rural life in Sweden.
I think we've seen some of this art before. I feel like we talked about it either here or on Twitter. I think you and I did. But I love this idea that there are... I think it was Ralph McQuarrie did all the drawings for Star Wars back in the day. Like, if you don't believe that an image can drive a movie or television property, then you're wrong. Because it can, and it does.
It absolutely
and
can,
I think it's a great idea.
The only difference here is these images weren't made with the intention of driving a TV series. So Nathaniel Halpern has to find that show idea in there.
But
I think he's suited to the task.
The images were definitely meant to evoke questions of what is this world, and it was up to you to write the whole backstory, right?
Yeah. Hulu's The First, starring Natasha McElhone and Sean Penn, developed by Beau Willimon, who helped develop House of Cards, premieres September 14th, following the first human Mars mission again. I mean, there's been movies. That's all I'm saying.
I might love this. We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. And Sony showed but didn't release a trailer for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which hits theaters December 18th, featuring Miles Morales, Gwen Stacy, Peter Parker, and more Spideys from other universes like Spider-Ham, Penny Parker, and Spider-Man Noir. So it's animated, giving Sony license to just kind of go wherever they want and combine all of the Spider-Men and women.
We've talked about this trailer on the show. The trailer was fantastic. The idea of what they're exploring, I think this
is a new trailer that no one has seen outside of comics.
Sure. But I assume
we've talked about a previous trailer. I think.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, correct. Correct. But this makes me happy. I really like it.
All right, Brian, what have you been watching?
I've been watching. I saw Sorry to Bother You because the entire universe asked me to do so. I watched Deadwood, of course. I took my kids to go see Won't You Be My Neighbor, which was a bit of a weird uphill battle because I've got a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 14-year-old. And I had to explain. The 10-year-old was like, hey, there used to be this television show and it was really subversive and did some insane stuff. There's a documentary about it. Do you want to watch it? She's like, yeah, I'm in. The 5-year-old, I was like, there will be moving pictures that I think will be generally pleasant for you. And if you start crying, I'll just take you outside. And then the 14-year-old was like, you're old enough now that you should understand that documentary is a type of storytelling and you should experience one about this children's show that you've never seen. Anyway, I ended up absolutely loving it. It was fantastic. I cried the entire time. And then at some point they touched on a social issue that caused my 14-year-old to cry. And then I heard my 10-year-old crying. And then I knew I had won as a dad because I dadded correct.
Cool. The only thing that I've been watching that you haven't, because I watched Sorry to Bother You, Deadwood, and Preacher as well. New Legends of Monkey. Do you know Monkey?
I mean, I know Monkey Island with Guybrush Threepwood.
Oh, no, this is different. I had no idea about Monkey until I found New Legends of Monkey on Netflix. And I'm like, well, what's new about it? And I went and looked it up. It was a Japanese show produced in China that became a cult hit in Australia in the 80s.
Oh, of course it did. Why wouldn't it?
Right. Exactly. And so Netflix has rebooted it. And it's one of those things that's really just meant for Australia, right? There's a bunch of Australia and New Zealand actors in it, and it's trying to recapture sort of the idea of that cult hit with a new, more modern take. I've never seen Monkey. I went and looked at a trailer of it online, and I kind of get the sense, it's fantasy fighting and weird sound effects and bad dubbing. New Legends of Monkey, though, is delightful. Like, it's just a half hour long. Cute characters, fun little vignettes that kind of lead one into the other from one episode to the next. And the Monkey King is dumb and not very good at things and has lost some of his powers. And the monk is secretly not a monk, but everyone relies on him, but it's really a girl. And I don't know how to explain it, but I was entirely charmed by it.
And this is where?
On Netflix.
Okay, right on.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where Netflix went and rebooted something like they've done with Fuller House, right? And stuff like that, except in Australia with a cult hit.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know. I can't explain it, but I like it. Let's see what Bryce has been on the lookout for.
Hey guys, do you remember that I shared Last Chance U with you guys last year, or maybe?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is the show that follows week after week a junior a community college division football team, and there's a new season out on Netflix, and it's interesting because this third season is now following a completely different school with a completely different context, right?
Okay.
In the first 2 seasons, you were following EMCC, which is like this top ranked uber winningest team. And now this new season 3 follows Independence University in Independence, Kansas, one of the most losingest community college teams.
Oh, wow.
Who gained this big brash head coach from Compton, and he's been a coach at other top ranked schools, and it's a completely different dynamic because you, instead of having like a reputation to defend and to protect, you now have a reputation you have to overwrite and prove people wrong. And that itself is really great in that the entire story and the entire context around everything is different. And also, if you like the first 2 seasons, which were about EMCC, Netflix put up an hour-long special called EMCC and After, I think, which is following the players, the staff, the head coach, and followed them in the past year or so since the last season came out, and what they're up to, where people went to, why things did or didn't work out. And that itself is also really great because so much of season 2 of Last Chance U revolved around like the fact that they were being filmed and being frustrated that they were being filmed. And so that's also really interesting. That's you'll find it under more episodes. It's like they treat it like a 4th season, which is maybe confusing. But those are all on Netflix. So check it out. Last Chance, the letter U.
Right.
If you got something we should be on the lookout for, be sure to email us cordkillers@gmail.com.
Tom.
Brian, you do things.
Tom.
Yeah.
I'm doing crazy things now. I
was going to say, like, you do things, but now you're doing things.
Yeah, capital. I used to do things, but now I capital D, capital T do things, or am doing a thing. Look,
you're a landed gentleman.
Okay, so here's the thing. Let me just here's the 5 to 10 year bet that I'm making. So what we need is to increase the number of episodes of Modern Rogue that we do per week, because it seems to be a hit and it's growing on YouTube. What we need is to start all working under the same rooftop. Now, in a sensible universe, what you would do is you would rent space, 3,000 square feet. I don't know, $4,000 a month. That's what normal people do. But something about what we're doing with the Modern Rogue, what we've done with Diamond Club, it has inspired this. Like, man, I don't have a lot of opportunities to not try to shoot for the moon left in me, and so I'm doing it right now. We found 7 acres in West Austin that used to be a nudist compound. People who lived there got caught up in the satanic panic of 1980s and went to jail. The Qigong master taught there. There's a train that was converted into a bus. Then they put a race car engine in it. And as soon as I heard all these stories, I thought, this is where it has to happen. So we just closed on this place. And so over this weekend, Jason Murphy and I wanted to figure out if it was haunted. So we decided to do a camp out. Two grown-ass men did a sleepover in a haunted property. We got lost on the property.
You guys getting lost for an hour was so funny to me.
We got legit lost in the woods, Blair Witch style. And all it did was just confirm for me that this is one of the most fun, outrageous schemes that I've ever been up to. Do me a favor. Check out, if you look at twitch.tv/Night Attack, you'll see the archived footage of me and Jason trying to creep each other out, and just stay tuned to the insane story. So I think we're already seeing dividends of doing such an outrageous thing, because Texas Monthly had me on their podcast. I chatted with an hour and change with Andy Langer, who's a legend in Austin. You and I always heard him on the radio in the 90s.
Yeah, KGSR.
Yeah. And so it seems like whatever we're doing is so insane that it's causing a lot of people to get into it. So take a look around and follow our crazy shenanigans. That's all I'm going to say.
All right, let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines.
So we probably don't have as much time to devote to this as we would like, because there's been so much going on with Comic-Con, and we spent so much time talking about that stuff. But Disney cut ties with James Gunn, and he will not be directing Guardians of the Galaxy 3. He did write the script, They can choose not to use that script, I suppose, but he will not be directing. A series of old tweets from Gunn referencing controversial topics and in most opinions, tasteless jokes about them involving pedophilia and rape and other things resurfaced online this week. Other tweets, which have since been deleted, included satire about 9/11, AIDS, and the Holocaust. These were pushed by a conservative group who don't like Gunn's politics, and they wanted to bring him down, and they did. Thursday, Gunn wrote, "Many people who have followed my career know when I started. I viewed myself as a provocateur, making movies and telling jokes that were outrageous and taboo. As I have discussed publicly many times, as I've developed as a person, so has my work and my humor." Now, there have been varying reactions from the other Guardians of the Galaxy folks, from Michael Rooker deleting his Twitter account and saying, "Tired of all the hate, I'm out of here, see you on Instagram," to kind of an impassioned defense of Gunn from Dave Bautista, to a biblical quote from Chris Pratt, and some "we love all of our Guardians of the Galaxy 3 family" posts from Karen Gillan and Zoe Saldana. But it has certainly caused a stir, because it is not the clear-cut, here's a guy who did something awful and is getting what he deserved, but it's clear that this person wrote some pretty awful stuff.
Yeah, so I despite my better judgment, I ended up obliquely weighing in on this. I tweeted one thing, and it's just, I would very much prefer that the discussion not be about this actual person or this actual firing. You know, I'm sure all parties had their reasons for doing this stuff. The thing that bums me out about this, though, is in the abstract, when you are a tiny artist getting started, one of the few levers that you have at your disposal to attract attention, to help make your mark on the world around you, is to say or do something transgressive. And some really great art has come out of people pulling that lever. And even I don't want this being judged on whether or not the tweets were funny. That's a dumb reason. I don't like that it was a singular group with a political bent that instituted this. I don't like, and yet I understand, you know, Disney saying this is a dollars and cents thing. This is, more outrageousness than we can afford, more chaos than we can afford for this property going forward. Here's what I do believe is and I'm speaking in the abstract, Disney knew who James Gunn was when they hired him. They knew that wild card energy that he had, and they took a speculative gamble on Guardians of the Galaxy, and they let him go a little bit wild, and they harvested and made a lot of money based on that outrageous energy. And it feels unfortunate to me, I guess that's the only word I could say, that they're now cleaning their hands of the entire thing, but also keeping the money and the franchise and all the spoils of what came from that speculative gamble. So I guess whether or not he did or did not do a crime or a sin or whatever by saying or doing whatever he did, it bums me out to see that move demonized whole cloth, you know, because like in whatever world, you know, like Sarah Silverman said a lot of outrageous stuff. Now she's a Disney princess. And James Gunn also said outrageous stuff. And now he's outcast from the Disney empire. And as somebody who certainly has said and done transgressive things in the name of trying to be funny, I'm not comfortable with institutionalizing whether tribally you agree with the side that wanted him outed or the side that wished that hadn't happened. Divorced from the tribalism, I really feel like it's important that we not demonize that move. I feel like that if you appreciate art, you need to appreciate the transgressive move sometimes people make.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too far down this road because we can get super philosophical and talk all night about this, I'm pretty sure. But, you know, the line moves in culture. What used to be appropriate, as long as it was kept out of the public eye, is no longer appropriate, even if it is kept out of the public eye. Frank Sinatra would likely not survive very long in the modern day if his alleged other behavior came to public light. Maybe it wasn't true. I'm not saying anything about Frank, but
sure,
there are stories, and stories are what get you fired. What happened with James Gunn was tweets got him fired. That's brand new. That's our collective record coming back to haunt us. And that is a very interesting question for us to deal with as a society, which is, do the mistakes you make in public, because so much is in public now on social media and elsewhere, are they allowed to impact you later if it's unclear that they are still the way you feel? And James Gunn and several other people have said, hey, I'm not that person anymore. That was 10 years ago. And you shouldn't judge me now based on that then. I'll tell you what, I certainly wouldn't want to be judged on things that I said and did in my 20s. For certain. So there has to be a limit. Luckily, most of what I did is not preserved on the internet anywhere. But even so, I'd be happy to tell you what it was and say, hey, and you know what? This is what I learned from it, and this is why I don't think that way, or I changed. So there's a lot to be discussed here, and I think it'll be interesting to see. Because Disney is just, you can say what you want about Disney and talk about, well, they inherited him or they didn't inherit. None of that matters. Disney is going to use James Gunn or not use James Gunn based on whether they think it is actually it's going to do more harm to keep him than to get rid of him. Right now, they're saying, in the current climate, somebody does this kind of stuff, doesn't matter who brought it up. There are plenty of people who are not okay with it. We get rid of him. But there is a backlash. We'll see if that backlash is enough to make Disney recalculate and go, well, now we've caused just as much problem on the other end, or whether that backlash fades away and they say, you know what, that's what we had to do.
Yeah, I guess the Pollyanna side of me, the optimist, wants to believe that the ultimate thing that you judge people on is whether or not there's hate in their heart. And I think it's fairly clear that at this moment, and probably back when he wrote those tweets, there's not hate in James Gunn's hearts. And it really upsets me that he's having to pay the price regardless, because there appears to be hate in someone else's heart who wanted to stir up some trouble.
Possibly. Possibly.
Meanwhile, senators in Hawaii and South Dakota introduced a bill, the Reliable Emergency Alert Distribution Improvement, or READY Act, that would, quote, explore broadcasting alerts to online streaming services such as Netflix and Spotify. Man, I don't know how I feel about this. The libertarian
I don't
in
have
me
a lot
says,
to say, but I think it's interesting to explore. I think this is exactly what you should do, which is like, hey, emergency broadcast system needs to reach as many people as possible. You know what a lot of people are doing? Watching Netflix.
Yeah, man. Well, and especially in an age where when we went to Hawaii, we got to hear the stories of firsthand accounts of everybody who got the alerts on their phones saying, by the way, you're about to die.
That is not what the text actually read, in case anyone thinks.
Oh,
Brian's
sorry. All it said was that a missile was definitely coming to blow
From
you
North
up,
Korea.
and that it was not a drill. So forgive me. Like they were telling stories of people lowering their kids into sewer grates and all this stuff. I just hope they do it right. How about that?
Well, here's the thing. That is perfectly reasonable to be like, hey, well, we've had these false alerts, right? That's not, again, this is similar to the James Gunn logic. That's not how you judge this.
Correct. Correct.
Because if that's how you judge it, then we shouldn't have an emergency broadcast system. It's like,
sure,
that's a separate problem. That problem has been addressed and is unusual, even though it's proximate to us, and hopefully will not happen again. But separately, hey, you know what? Fewer people are listening to the live radio broadcast and live television broadcast, which is how we used to get the word out on emergencies. Maybe we should explore if there's other ways we should do it. I think there's probably a better way to do it using the internet. And text message alerts have worked very well in Los Angeles regarding fires. That's how I have been made aware of emergency situations here. But it's an interesting thought to be like, I wonder if there's anything to be done with Spotify.
Yeah, well, and I think there is. I think in my perfect version of it, it's voluntary and it's considered good citizenship to participate in it. Like, Netflix and Spotify and Pandora and YouTube, they all hold hands and they say, hey, we're all implementing this thing just so you know, if we detect that there's a dire emergency in your area, we're going to interrupt your programming to do it. That seems cool.
Management consulting firm CG42 is the latest to put out a study that says cord cutting is real, Brian.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we did it. Reddit, let's go home.
CG42 projects 5.4 million more people in the U.S. will cut the cord in 2018 for a total of 18.8 million cord cutters. That's more than Tech TV had subscribers when I worked there. The study surveyed customers and cites frustrations with lack of reasonable rates, getting nickeled and dimed with fees, and new customers getting better deals than existing ones as the reason folks are ditching cable.
Comcast withdrew its offer to purchase most of 21st Century Fox, leaving Disney in position to acquire everything except for the broadcasting network, Fox News, Fox Business, FS1, FS2, and the Big Ten Network, which will be spun off into their own company. Disney also previously agreed with the regulators to sell off the Fox Sports regional networks it will acquire as part of the deal. Meanwhile, Comcast will focus on acquiring Sky, which is 39% owned by Fox. For some reason, I thought Sky was 100% Fox. I'm interested to learn that it was...
It used to be part of the whole Rupert Murdoch big deal, and then it was partially owned. Anyway, right now it's 39% owned by Fox. Rupert Murdoch would like to buy the rest of Sky, but he's having a hard time getting regulators to play along with him in that market. And so it looks like Comcast might have the upper hand with the Sky deal, and dropping the Disney deal, which is complicated because it involves Fox on both ends, will make it a little easier for Comcast to try to buy Sky. And now we can go back to the much more simpler thing of Disney is in the process of acquiring Fox, but they don't own them yet, and probably won't until next year, and probably later next year than before because they had to go through all of this stuff. Netflix is rolling out a redesign to its TV-based apps over the next few months. There'll be a ribbon menu now on the left side that will contain search, my list, and separate sections for movies and series, as well as a section called new.
I look forward to getting hands-on. This is one of those things where it's like, even looking at it, I don't really have a strong sense of how I'll feel about it when I'm actually using it.
Yeah, I think I'll like it. I do like the idea of movies and TV shows being accessible separately instead of all lumped together. And I like being able to see what's new, although you can see that in a strip right now, but it's a little cleaner, I guess.
Meanwhile, sources tell the information that Walmart is considering offering a streaming video service for $8 a month, and matching Netflix's cheapest plan and less than Prime Video standalone amount. Walmart currently offers free streaming video with ads through its Vudu service.
Yeah, my guess is that this would be another Vudu add-on. I could be wrong about that. But
Yeah, call it Vudu Live or something, or Vudu everything.
They'd be able to say, Vudu now has a store and a free streaming service and a paid service that's cheaper than Netflix or something like that. All right, let's get to some dispatches from the front. Dan and Emily collaborated on this email, if we believe their signature, writing, "Hola, gents. I'd like to thank you guys for a number of show alerts, mostly courtesy of Bryce. Not everything in his wheelhouse is my flavor, but he seems to find serials early that we haven't seen and enjoy. If you guys haven't talked about Letterkenny yet, you should go watch it. The first 2 short seasons are available on Hulu. It's Canadian dry humor, full of puns and stereotype characters. Doesn't waste time with backstory. We don't care about, just rapid fires the funny. Give it a shot and see what you think." And they said, if you guys haven't talked about it, Bryce, I think we have, actually.
I feel like I remember us talking about this either last week or the week before, but yeah, this just came to Hulu, at least the first 2 seasons. I've seen clips of this online, and it's very funny, but it's very dense and fast talking, so you really have to kind of pay attention and probably watch with subtitles because they have a very distinct accent.
So it's not a leave it on while I'm playing Hearthstone kind of game.
No, you would... Though, I don't know, maybe it'd work like a dog. You leave the radio on for a dog so they think people are...
But also I always have subtitles on because whenever there's accents involved, I want to make sure I understood everything correctly.
Yeah.
I put that in there because I do think that you don't get nearly the kudos that you deserve as the resident tastemaker.
Well, thank you to everyone who sends in suggestions for On the Lookout. That helps a lot.
Cordkillers@gmail.com. Arturo in Indiana writes in saying, "Hello to all. One thing I've been thinking a lot is a way to watch shows without having to have a month-to-month month's membership with different services, considering what most services allow you to watch their whole catalog. For example, I would pay Netflix in January and catch up on the shows during that month, then cancel it. February, I'd watch Hulu and watch the first 2 seasons of Handmaid, catch a few of the shows, then cancel it. HBO in March, and so on, so on, so on. Or what about an AI like you guys talk about that would do all that stuff? To be honest, the more I think about this, the more I think that I could totally see in as soon as 3 years, you let's say next year or the year after, Siri and Alexa allow for upgrade plug-in tour guide options or whatever, where it's like, hey, they're gonna based on your viewing habits make suggestions and say, and tell you like, hey, we're gonna spend this whole month watching HBO. Does that sound fun? I'm gonna buy the one thing. This is everything you got to watch. We got 3 days left. You better finish up and watch that. Great. Now we're moving on to the next thing. It seems like there'll be a space for that. And once we come to trust our digital assistants, I think they'll be able to put together programs that do exactly that.
Andy wrote, hey, Tom, Brian, and guest, it seems like everyone compares Netflix and HBO to each other, but I don't think that's the right approach anymore. It seems that Netflix no longer wants to be HBO. They want to be your entire cable package. They now have original programming that targets so many niches. They cover most of the major basic cable channels. And because of this, I don't think Netflix cares about people criticizing their garbage programming. It's essentially just a channel you'd never tune into.
That is right. But the difference is that cable includes live programming of all varieties, sports and news and that stuff. Whereas everything in Netflix is definitely designed to be totally asynchronous after the fact. Even you could go back and watch old episodes of Chelsea Handler's show, and I'm sure they stand alone just fine, even if they were timely or came out on a schedule. So I think it's a close analogy, but not as strong as
I think it's an interesting point that HBO and Netflix aren't exactly comparable, because HBO is still a kind of channel and Netflix covers a lot of different bases now.
Yeah, but HBO does too. They got kids programming, adult programming, timely programming. Anyway, Tim says about the listener who wrote in last week about wanting to have in progress themed streams. I think he's onto something. For horror fans, the streaming service Shudder broadcasts a constant stream of its content on rotation, dubbed Shudder TV. In fact, you don't even have to be a subscriber to access it. If you do subscribe, however, you can switch between several subgenres channels to Shudder's content because it comes up as soon as you start the app. I found myself getting interested in movies that I haven't seen, which I may not have otherwise chosen. I can always pull up the on-demand version of the app to get to the beginning later. It's an easy way to discover new content without searching through titles, summaries, and trailers. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I like the idea that there's something you don't even have to subscribe to get the linear lean back. And then it's like, hey, but if you want to watch this from the beginning, pick up a subscription.
Yeah.
Michael from God It's Hot in Texas writes, what I think Netflix and perhaps other streaming services need is an I Feel Lucky button that will just pick something that its algorithm knows you'll like based on your watching history. Don't like what it picks? Hit next, and it could pick something else for you. Or at least that's what I would want. I'm not keen on dropping in the middle of a movie or TV show. That's one reason I watch everything via streaming DVR. You know what? I do like the I'm feeling lucky button idea for Netflix.
I do too. I'm so glad to hear that. I think that would be fun. I do think they would have to add something, because I feel like if you hit that button, all you would see is a Columbia Pictures logo, and for a very long time,
they just have the title. The titles show up kind of superimposed at sometimes when you pick a show, so you could just have that show up right at the beginning.
What I would imagine is if you hit the I Feel Lucky button, it always begins with the trailer and gives you, a snapshot.
I would not want that.
Oh, yeah. You wouldn't want that?
I just want a text superimposed that says this is the movie or TV show and this is the episode, and then because if it's TV, it's going to start right in.
Here's the idea, Tom. Here's the idea. You could press the I Feel Lucky button, but it has a 5-minute cooldown. So it's like you have to just give it just barely a chance, let it get started.
God, no, I don't want that many restrictions.
I think that would be great.
Couldn't you, in the meantime, just watch whatever the top marquee item on Netflix is, like the very
you could decide that, but then you're the one pulling the lever on the trolley problem, and that's a different experience. Whereas when there's a random button,
if you just do it real quick and just okay,
but
you still have to think to do it quick. Like, okay, I'm not gonna look. right? Versus I'm feeling lucky is like I can press this button safely and I'll not know what's coming until I press it.
And you can feel like it's something that happened to you that you had
there's,
choice.
There's all kinds of workarounds, right? Like you can close your eyes and move the mouse
hey,
around.
Man, I would never intentionally load up Bridget Jones's Diary, but suddenly it was just on my screen and I was having a great time. It was really great. I don't know. I think there's something
weird
to it.
And dated.
Meanwhile, yes to both. Hi, I'm Brian. Totally different person. Michael from Please Turn Down the Heat in Texas writes, I subscribe to some movie trailer channels on YouTube. I frequently see movies that I would like to watch later, but I'm not aware of a service that lets me tag those movies that haven't even hit theaters yet that I'd like to see whenever they're available, especially on streaming. Do you know of such a service? Again, I think the digital assistants are just going to get better and better and better. You're going to be watching.
I'm not sure what Michael's after. If he's meaning something within YouTube where he could just punch a button without friction and add it to a list, that I don't think exists yet. But you're right, Brian. You could tell your digital assistant, like, hey, remind me that on August 5th, such and such movie is coming out. You could do that right now. There's also a couple of services, one called Letterboxd, LETTERBOXD.com, and FilmFed at filmfed.com, who track your movies. Now, they pitch them more as diaries, like watch a movie and then write down what you think. But they also have features that let you schedule what movies you want to see and keep track of those, and will remind you when they're out.
Yeah. And I do believe that all of that will be folded into, because I think specifically you say like a movie that hasn't even hit theaters, he would love to be reminded when it's available for video on demand, at his house down the road. I think all of that
and
eventually.
Letterboxd is hooked into Netflix, iTunes, and I think one other source to do stuff like that.
Cool.
Well, that's it for this episode of Cordkillers. Don't forget, folks, our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack, which is also carried on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We will kill your cords again next time. Join us.
True. Hey guys, Brian and Tom here, and it's just the same old message at the end of the credits, just like always.
That's right, Brian. Nothing new here except your name showing up.
Oh my gosh,
because
I've got a name.
You just supported us on Patreon.
Yeah, all those $5 donors. Look at that. That's your name in pixels. We're gonna make you famous, kid. Put your name in pixels on the internet.
There's names in there, but some of you are new. Some of you aren't there. It's sad. What can they do, Brian?
I mean, they could go to patreon.com/cordkillers and pledge $5 an episode and be one of these amazing people, like this one.
Amazing.
Oh, look at that name right there.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.